Dan Wootton, join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Good evening, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is Dewbs & Co. On today's show, we'll be talking about mask wearing in schools. Nadine Zahawi spoke about them this morning on The Breakfast Show with Eamonn and Isabel, but he failed to answer the question whether the Cabinet will be wearing them. But should masks be worn in school? But on the other hand, why are we so scared of Omicron when there's apparently only one patient in ICU in Scotland with the variant? The remaining other patients, 50 or so of them, have Delta. Should we just take the hit now rather than attempting to slow Omicron down and ultimately prolong the agony? Then good old warmonger Tony Blair is facing a huge backlash for his knighthood. The Change.org petition is now over 460,000. How many signatures will it take to get his knighthood revoked, or do you think he deserves it? And should child killers face the death penalty? After the killing of Arthur Labinjo Hughes, Boris Johnson said, anyone who plans then carries out the murder of a child should never be released from prison. Arthur's law. The sentencing of his killers is currently being looked at as being too lenient, but is a whole of life sentence still not enough? Should we bring back the death penalty for child killers? But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Very good evening to you. It's 6 o'clock. I'm Polly Middlehurst. In New York, a 12-page legal document which Prince Andrew's lawyers hope will end the civil sex abuse case against him has been made public. The 2009 agreement was between Virginia Giuffre and Prince Andrew's friend, the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The release of the agreement is being watched closely because of a separate civil case in which Giuffre accuses Prince Andrew of sexually abusing her 2 decades ago, a charge denied by the Prince. Well, the newly released document states Miss Giuffre settled the case for $500,000 or more than £370,000 back in 2009. It also makes no reference to any royal person, which was what experts were speculating may implicate Prince Andrew before the document's release. Instead, the deal says it applies to second parties and, quote, other potential defendants instead. The expansive terms of the agreement apply from the beginning of the world to this date of release. That news just to us in the last hour. Well, away from that, the Prime Minister is warning the NHS faces considerable pressure over the coming weeks due to the increasing number of COVID cases. The latest figures show more than 157,000 daily infections were recorded in England and Scotland. Boris Johnson is ruling out the reduction of a self-isolation period to 5 days, claiming the risk of an infectious person returning to work is much too high. On a visit to a vaccination hub in Buckinghamshire this morning, he urged everyone who hasn't yet had their booster to get one.
I want to make a crucial point to people who are thinking about getting their booster. There are still quite a lot of people who have had 2 jabs but haven't had the third. A third jab really does make a big difference. There are 2 million slots just this week to get your booster, so get boosted now. It can make all the difference in the world. The majority of people who are in ICU, sadly, have not been vaccinated, and certainly the vast majority, about 90%, have not been boosted.
Boris Johnson. Well, secondary school students in England are being told to take COVID tests before starting their new term. Face masks will be mandatory for at least the next 3 weeks, and classes may be merged if too many teachers are absent. The new rules are being introduced by the Education Secretary to try to curb the spread of the Omicron variant. Nadeem Zahawi saying schools must do everything they can to protect face-to-face learning.
I want to keep Omicron out of the classroom and students in the classroom, and not for a day longer. I don't want children to be wearing masks. In fact, I've also asked my team in the department to look at doing a piece of research for the longer term as to the impact of wearing masks in classroom would have on students and on their ability to learn.
And tributes have been paid to a 14-year-old girl who died after being hit by a car in the West Midlands on New Year's Eve. Olivia Kolek's family described her as the brightest star in their lives. A 39-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of causing death by driving while under the influence of drugs. He's been released under investigation pending further inquiries. Ministers are being urged to bring in a new law that would guarantee all workers 2 weeks of paid leave after a bereavement. The SNP's Patricia Gibson is bringing forward a private member's bill to Westminster. She says it would give people time to grieve without worrying about financial pressures. In the United States, 2 people are missing following wildfires in the state of Colorado. More than 9 square miles were charred and nearly 1,000 homes and buildings were destroyed by the blaze. Police are yet to establish a cause. Investigators say they haven't ruled out arson. That's your full news update. I'm back in an hour. See you then.
Hello, good evening. I'm Nana Akua, with you till 7 o'clock. My panel join me, Deputy Leader of Reclaim Party, Martin Daubney, former Labour advisor Scarlett Maguire, and also author James Bloodworth. Welcome.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Right.
Nice to see you. Brilliant stuff. Right. And also, I want to know your thoughts as well. Get in touch with me, GBViews at gbnews.uk, or why not get in touch via Twitter at GBNews. Right, so Nadeem Zahawi says that the measure to introduce mandatory face coverings in secondary school classrooms in England is not ideal. The Education Secretary spoke to Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster on their new breakfast show this morning.
As part of Plan B, you'll recall we had mask wearing in communal parts in schools. The guidance we've suggested is that just whilst Omicron is surging, that students in secondary schools wear masks in the classroom. It's not ideal. We know that the best place for children is to be in school with their friends, learning in front of a teacher. I want to keep Omicron out of the classroom and students in the classroom, and not for a day longer.
And all secondary schools pupils in England will also be tested for COVID before the new term, and some classes may be merged to cover staff shortages, and then the right measures will hopefully keep those schools open for longer. So what do my panel think of this then? So I'm going to start with you, Martin, because we've not met before. So
No, but it's lovely to be on the show.
Great.
Thank you very much. I would say this. The Health Minister has had more positions on this than the Kama Sutra, and COVID passports, and vaccinating children, and you name it. He didn't wear a mask to the Education Awards at Christmas himself, neither did any of the top teachers. There is not a single scientific study out there that shows that the credibility of masks in classrooms actually works.
are you sure? Where did you find it?
I've been on television so endless times during this, and I've said to every doctor, let's see the evidence. Is the evidence there? The answer is at best very, very marginal, to the point of non-existent.
No, I've seen evidence about masks and different types of masks with different
In
levels.
classrooms?
Well, you see, it depends what the setting is. Maybe they haven't actually done that study specifically in a classroom.
Well, they need to, because if they're introducing it into classrooms, then it needs to be based on science. But it's not science, it's politics.
But it could be based on the science of the effectiveness of a mask in whatever surroundings you're in. So there is plenty of studies that show the effectiveness of a mask with the metal clip, then the mask with a metal clip, and then with the scarf, and so on and so forth.
There are plenty that show it doesn't work, but specifically in classrooms, if you're introducing a mandate, it must be based on science. But we know it isn't about science, because the same science was ignored by the JCVI about vaccinating children when they did a U-turn on that. And if the evidence is there, let's see it. There's a great deal of evidence to show that it impairs the learning of autistic children, of children who are visually impaired, and also it just kind of generally is uncomfortable and doesn't work.
Okay, but...
So there's that. And then it's about, do we believe the government's position? I don't think we should.
Well, I mean,
they've made more U-turns than this and Jeremy Clarkson. Right since the start.
Listen, sometimes a U-turn isn't actually a bad thing if you've made a mistake. If you're sat there and says, turn around, you're going in the wrong direction, you're not going to keep going when you know that you're going in the wrong direction. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I'm not slightly buying the argument that just because you don't have a setting of mask wearing in a classroom, that they don't work. Scarlett, what do you think?
I think masks are a sign, actually, of complete failure. I mean, what's incredible is the government has had over a year to put ventilators in classrooms. That's what's needed, is not...
What do you mean, as an air ventilator?
As air purifiers, right? So air purifier, a year ago, they knew that was the answer, and they have done nothing for a year. And so suddenly we are faced with, what do you do? Oh, right, you put the children in masks. And so all this is about failure. I mean, and at the moment, what the government is saying is there are 7,000 air purifiers that schools can apply for. Now, there are 23,000 schools in England alone. Yeah. And that schools and not other establishments. And they have 10, 20, 30 classrooms each. I mean, so some schools might get one ventilator. They should have put air purifiers in, and they should be doing that now, actually. And then we would have no masks.
It's interesting you say that, but from what I heard, they'd identified that many schools, so about 7,000 schools that needed them, which is why they had 7,000 units for the schools. Now, to me, I hear your point. If you gave me the option between masks and a ventilation unit, that would improve the air circulation and people didn't have to wear masks. It's a no-brainer. So I would agree with you. What do you think, James, on that?
I mean, I think there is some evidence that masks do work in enclosed spaces, especially an N95 mask, a proper mask, simply because it's a respiratory virus and it spreads by you breathing out droplets. However, I don't think this measure in particular will make much difference, because I think it's locking the door after the horse has bolted, as the saying goes, because Omicron we've already reached the peak of Omicron cases, probably. It would seem so. Scientists are saying we've already reached the peak. So this is just tinkering around the edges because people are calling on the government to do something, and it wants to be seen to look like it is doing something, to take action, whereas I don't think it'll make that much difference.
But why are we doing anything? Because if you look at Omicron, and in Scotland, as I said, in the ICU, they have, I think it's around about, I don't know the exact numbers, but the last count, 50 patients with the Delta variant in ICU, 1 patient with Omicron in the ICU. And we now know, so if you were to take that as a wider thing, it would say that the Delta variant is potentially 50 times more deadly. And this is just on that very small, simple study looking at it. Yeah. And most people who get Omicron are not that ill, or they're ill, but it's just, I've had worse colds. So I'm wondering, this is almost like a natural vaccine. So I'm confused as to why we feel we have to keep going on this treadmill of, vaccination and this and that, when you've got something that's come along that could actually help. I mean, what do you think about that?
If you drill further down to the evidence about child death, there hasn't been a single child without serious underlying health conditions that's died of this. And there was no second spike when the schools reopened. We were told there'd be a dreadful second spike in a far more deadly variant with Delta when the schools reopened. Never happened. But there hasn't been this, you will kill your granny. It's terrifying children. I was in a school in December when I was doing a by-election, and teenagers are traumatised by this. They believe that they are vectors of death to old people.
Have you got any kids?
I have. I've got 12-year-old. No, but the point is, the science isn't there. It's about pure politics, it's pure pantomime, and it's pandering to the unions, who haven't given a damn about kids in classrooms since the beginning. They care about damaging the government by coming up with scientifically baseless claims. That's what's happened.
This is not about the unions.
It is. It's about pandering to them to keep schools open without there being science.
Charlotte doesn't agree with you.
It's absolutely not. I mean, this is about... I mean, one of the things is you say, well, the Omicron's OK, and we still haven't seen all the evidence, but Delta isn't. The problem is you don't know which one you're getting, right? I mean, Delta's still around. But this isn't about unions. It's about that what we finally realise is we've got to keep the schools open. That's the most important thing. We've got to keep the kids in school. It's better for their education. It's better for their mental health.
Unions didn't want that.
And frankly, it's better for their safety. And that's what this is all about. And it's just that, as always, the government, having had the whole of Christmas to put in these ventilators, suddenly say, as they see it opening, this is what's got to do. And then they start telling the head teachers how to run their schools, how to put classes together. It's crazy. I mean, we know about the problems of this virus, and we know that children have to be kept in school. So therefore, we need to do some planning.
I mean, we will have to learn to live with COVID. And Omicron, we don't know yet whether it's milder, intrinsically milder, or it's milder because simply more people have received the vaccination.
So what? So what's the difference? Does it matter?
Well, it does, because we can't let it spread it because we don't know.
Well, no, because
we don't know that it's milder intrinsically, or it's because of vaccination.
That's irrelevant, though, isn't it?
Because not everyone has been vaccinated with the booster yet. So it's worth slowing it a little bit so we can catch up with booster doses, make sure everyone's protected, and then we can go back to normal. I think wearing masks in school for 3 weeks, I don't think is the biggest sacrifice in the world.
I think that's slightly flawed, though, what you're saying there. We don't know whether it's more deadly or whatever. What's changed is us, actually. We've seen the virus, the body has seen the virus. Most of us have either had some version of it, and therefore we have built...
Or been vaccinated.
Or been vaccinated, so we've created a protective layer. So therefore, whether it's more deadly or whether it's the same or whatever, doesn't matter. It's more about us, isn't it? And we also have antivirals, we also have...
I agree. I think
all the medications
but we still need to complete the booster rollout. I agree with you.
Of course,
I think once we complete the booster rollout, then I'll be on the same page.
Do you think we need to wait that long?
I think it will be long.
I think we need to get on with it, really.
It's the end of January.
And as for this is the new normal now. I think people start to understand and accept that this is how it is.
Well,
but this was my normal.
I think there's going to be another mutation. I mean, the problem is it's not like it's going to stop. And I mean, we've been very lucky about two things. One is that Delta wasn't the first one, because I think that it would have raced through and caused many more deaths and hospitalisations. Is actually the ordinary virus was much less deadly, and now
do we know that? We don't know that. Is it?
Well, we do.
That true? I mean,
we do know how dangerous. I mean, how dangerous Delta was.
Well, that was dangerous, but what you're supposing is that the previous one was less dangerous. I don't know whether it was or.
Well, not that many people went to hospital.
No, I think it was more dangerous in a sense because we didn't.
We're all talking about vaccines and boosters and all this, and one thing that never gets talked about, not enough in this case, is the damage this has caused children. It's been a cataclysmic failure of statesmanship. To what we've done to an entire generation, the most impoverished and those behind have suffered the most. And they've been used as political pawns by the unions they have and by the Labour Party they have. And the masks now is simply a tool to get the schools open. It's true, the NEU were saying we're not going to open unless there are masks. And it wasn't true then and it's not true now. It's the same with vaccinations.
And they're not saying it. And
They did.
And children are not... I mean, to say the Labour Party are using children's pawns is just...
They were, because it was Labour councillors that were closing schools across London, which caused a nationwide dominoes to fall back in the first lockdown.
The reason the schools were closed was because, I mean, children were vectors. I mean, there was no question that nobody knew quite what to do, and people were very, very worried about children bringing it back into the home for the parents, for the grandparents. I mean, we now know that what we have to do is we have to do everything to keep the schools open. We have to keep everything to keep children in school, because that is the safest and best place for them to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, the mask thing, though, for me, yeah, I think it's important that people wear masks anyway. I would have had them doing that before COVID in any case, because I'm a bit like that. Cover your mouth, cover your face, gel your hands, wash your hands. I was doing that anyway.
No, but absolutely, why don't people wear masks on the tube when they have bronchitis?
I think
it is incredible.
I think in public transport, though, actually, there's a couple of things we've learned. I don't necessarily object to wearing a mask, say, if I'm on public transport. I have no problem with that. I don't mind. I don't object to wearing a mask if I'm walking around a building, somebody says you have to wear one. It isn't the biggest deal. And I think kids are resilient enough. If you say wear a mask all day, surgeons do it, the kids can do it. But if there was a better alternative, like, for example, better ventilation, surely that's
absolutely
the answer.
That's what we should be having.
Well, you've been sending in your opinions as well, and loads of you being saying lots of different things. Let's see if we've got any comments. Martha says, what have we got? Oh, yes. Marianne on masks says, why do doctors and nurses wear masks if it is not to protect people? Very true. I would agree. I think they work anyway, even if Martin says that he doesn't think in that setting they would. Jacqueline on air purifiers says, surely it's the local authorities' duty, not the government, to determine whether masks should be worn. And Adrian, culture in the Far East is mask wearing, is normal for anyone with a cold and has been in play for many years. We need to get over it. I'm sort of with you on there as well. Janice says, I'm completely against wearing masks for teenagers at school. Dawn has sent in a message saying, learning to live with COVID involves wearing masks. Simples. She's right. She sounds like one of those things that they go, simples. What are they? What are they called?
The meerkat?
Meerkat,
right.
yes.
Meerkats.
I'm losing my short-term memory. Listen, you've been sending in all your opinions. Keep them coming at GB News, or why not send us an email, gbnews@gbnews.uk. So, still to come, does former Prime Minister Tony Blair deserve a knighthood? More than 465,000 people and rising. I can tell you about 10 minutes ago, it was 460,000, so it's rising at a pace. These people think that he should not. We'll discuss that after the break, but first, let's get another update with the weather.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, the UK looking largely dry in the south, some rain and hill snow further north. Let's have a look at the details. Zooming into the southwest, whilst it will be largely dry, it will be rather cloudy this evening, remaining mild though, with temperatures still in double figures. The southeast of England, as well as East Anglia, will also be dry this evening, but again with a fair amount of cloud across the capital. There'll be some outbreaks of rain across Wales as we end Monday. But northern areas, they may also see some clearer spells developing as well. Well, the Midlands this evening should be largely dry, we expect, although southern areas will remain cloudy and mild. The North Midlands may see some clearer spells, but here it will be that little bit colder. Moving up to northern England, we see that band of rain and hill snow moving southwards across the area. Behind the rain, turning much colder than it has been of late. That might be a comfort to some of you. The cold air will already be across Scotland, with some blustery wintry showers across the north, giving the risk of some icy patches here. Further south, dry but quickly turning frosty, and the clearer but colder weather will also be spreading across Northern Ireland this evening, with any rain quickly clearing to the south of the country. A few showers may follow across the north coast this evening. We'll see the band of rain and hill continue to move southwards, with frequent snow showers and strong winds across the far north. That's how the weather's shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co. I'm Nana Akua. Now, MPs are set to debate Tony Blair's knighthood, as more than 465,000 signatures have been put on that petition calling for him to be stripped of the honour. Now, the former Labour Prime Minister, the first and only person to date to lead the party to 3 consecutive general election victories, was named in the Queen's New Year's honours list. But critics argue the legacy of his invasion of Iraq in 2003 makes him unsuitable and that the decision is a kick in the teeth to the people of Afghanistan and Iraq. So does Tony Blair deserve a knighthood? Let's have a chat with my panel. I'm going to start actually with you, James.
Yeah, I mean, I think
your view.
I think he does. If other prime ministers, former prime ministers, receive them, then I think Tony Blair does absolutely as well. I think all former prime ministers should receive them.
What?
Otherwise, it becomes political.
Well, why should you get one just because everyone else has? Or, and they haven't actually. They haven't.
Otherwise, if say John Major and Margaret Thatcher received them and then Tony Blair didn't, it looks overtly political, and that would undermine the very system in the first place.
But not every prime minister actually has been given a knighthood.
Some of Harold Millen, I think, rejected one. But I mean, Tony Blair, what is the objection? Is it because he took the country to war? I mean, Margaret Thatcher took the country to war. John Major maintained an arms embargo in the former Yugoslavia, which indirectly led to genocide. So why is Blair the exception? I don't think.
Why is he the exception? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he took the country to war.
Dodgy dossier.
With a duplicit aim. I think he believed that was the right decision at the time.
Well, I don't know if you read that.
It wasn't so obvious at the time that it was the wrong decision because there was public support for it, just 52% support. I think it was.
No, there was huge protests actually against it.
Yeah, there were, but the public opinion was divided. Public opinion was divided at the time, and a lot of people who were more sympathetic to the case at the time have since said, they were always against it because it's become very fashionable to say that.
No, I can tell you I was there, and at the time...
I know, it was huge, but it was a million people, but the country's 70 million people, so...
Well, that's a huge... When was the last time you saw, apart from the poll tax, when was the last time you saw 1 million people come out
probably the poll tax, but again, it's not necessarily representative of public opinion. A big protest isn't necessarily where the public is. There were big protests against Brexit, but the majority supported Brexit.
The other side of it is obviously that the weapons of mass destruction were not there. So now we've discovered it. Yes, hindsight is a great thing, and we can take your point, but we know it now. And at the time, it became pretty obvious that there really wasn't anything going on, and yet he did that, and hundreds of thousands of people died. And this is sometimes you do something.
But the war would have happened anyway if Blair hadn't gone with the Americans, because Bush was determined to invade.
That's not quite the story. But anyway, let's come to you, Martin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the people who completely understands why people are angry about this. The difference between Blair's war and other wars is Blair's war was illegal.
Yeah.
That's the first key point. The evidence was never there. He greatly diminished our standing on the international stage by being a poodle to America. But beyond that, and I say this as somebody who voted for Tony Blair, I'm from Nottinghamshire, Dad's a coal miner, Dad's watching, hello Dad, love you. And it's like, we went with Blair because we thought, right, this is a new beginning, it was all things are going to get better. And instead, we saw the beginnings of Brexit. Blair, the arch globalist who just opened our borders to immigration, particularly when the A8 came. And you can snigger all you like, it absolutely ripped the heart out of working class Britain. Blair was warned many, many times about wage suppression, about housing shortages. All this happened on his watch, and he turned a blind eye because he was tied into the globalist dream of open borders. Big business loved it because they got endless cheap labour. Plasterers, builders, truck drivers saw their lives decimated. Blair set the key, the cornerstone for Brexit, which he tried to resist with all of his political might. So we have to ask the question, why is he getting this on now? And I think it's quite obvious. He's been one of the biggest cheerleaders of Big Pharma, of COVID passports, of all of this kind of messaging from the government. Blair has had his fingerprints all over it. He's been saying for years we should have digital ID. He is basically towing the government line. He's the turd that cannot be flushed. He's one of those people that...
You have to excuse that language.
The public...
Sorry, I'm just going to have to make it...
That's fine. I'm allowed to call Tony Blair worse than that.
No, I would not on GBNews. You can call him something like that in your own time. Not on GBNews. We'll apologise if that offended you. Let's go to Scarlett and see what she has to say.
People offended by that.
Look, I mean, I think we're sort of all over the place. To begin with Tony Blair and the Iraq War, because that's the reason is being given. And I opposed the Iraq War at the time. I went on television and I opposed it. But the point is that Parliament voted for it, right? And that America went into it wrongly, in my view, but it wasn't Tony Blair who found the evidence. You had Colin Powell, a man of incredible respect.
There wasn't any evidence.
A man of incredible respect who went to the UN to talk about it. So, yes, it was the wrong thing to do, but I think that a lot of people, frankly, as Martin, you've proved, are using the war to grind a lot of axes. And frankly, if we're talking about wrecking the country. Mrs. Thatcher destroyed the industrial base of this country, which is why we import so much, and yet she was given it. I don't think it is a conspiracy. The Queen...
Wasn't she the first female Prime Minister then? In this country?
She was the first.
So I would say that really that's a huge thing. She's the first.
Yes, but what
I would say that, and also she did do some amazing things, actually, and she didn't bring us into an illegal war. A lot of people would say that the war that Tony Blair brought people into was an illegal war, and even then he's never said sorry for the actual he's never said, if he'd actually been slightly repentant. He was even talking about giving advice on as to how we should deal with Afghanistan. I mean, it beggars belief that he thought that he should be the right person to do that.
Look,
so he showed no remorse for what he's done.
He's wrong, right? He was wrong about Iraq.
Yeah, but he's not even said sorry.
But he hasn't said sorry because he doesn't think he was wrong. But what I'm saying... there's no point in him saying
but we
sorry
know he was wrong.
Genuine...
But we know he was wrong. Like if somebody says to you, that is wrong because you were wrong about the weapons, you're wrong about this, the move that you made was completely wrong, and we now know that. You would think that person might actually show some sort of, I apologise, I should not have done this. He's not shown anything like that.
No, because he feels that getting rid of Saddam Hussein was the main thing. Now, I think he was wrong, but I actually think if we're talking about an honour, right, that it is not being done because he's sort of some poodle of this government, is that the honour was in the lap of the Queen, and actually the Daily Telegraph said that the reason he didn't get the honour immediately, which is what one would have expected, is because the Queen was very annoyed about what he did over Princess Diana's funeral, and that has forced her to do it. I think James is absolutely right, you just should do it, and it shouldn't be political, and that's what's really important.
So what is it based on then? Because if you should just
it's based on
then it basically means
that
run
the country.
Yes, but service to the country, but in what capacity?
So, I mean, why has John Major received one?
Yeah.
He was a terrible Prime Minister.
What did he do?
Yeah, but he didn't start. Did he start a war?
No, but what did he do that was right?
But the thing is, though, I'm looking at...
Nana, what did John Major do that was right?
Listen, there's too many things. I really don't have a list of the things that John Major did that were right or wrong. You know, all I can remember is that...
John Major did preside over a foreign policy disaster in the former Yugoslavia. Douglas Hurd, his defence secretary, and Malcolm Rifkin, they kept an arms embargo in place, which led to the Srebrenica massacre, and there was a siege of Sarajevo, and thousands of people were killed.
But that was in the basis of illegal warfare, the theatre of war. It's completely different. It's apples and pears.
They kept an arms embargo in place because they didn't want Bosnians to have arms to fight back against the Serbs. And Tony Blair took, whether it's legal or not, the Iraq war was illegal because Russia vetoed it at the UN. I don't think we should decide what's legal and illegal on that basis.
Well, the findings of the Chilcot inquiry was that it was illegal.
Yeah.
So it's not a case for us to decide on
why, though. Why did they find it illegal?
Because the evidence wasn't there. It was fabricated.
But the intelligence services were presenting the government with evidence that Saddam had WMD at the time. It wasn't Blair made that up. That evidence was it was wrong, but the government was receiving that evidence at the time.
But wasn't the letter on the outside of this Chilcot inquiry completely different to what was in it? And the problem here is that people went with what the letter said. So my problem here is that there seems to be almost some deception, and I'm not comfortable with that. And on the other side of things, this war, where hundreds of thousands of people died, was actually, it transpires that the thing that they went for didn't exist. And then on top of that, the person who instigated it doesn't even acknowledge that what he did was a mistake. Yeah. So he's not apologised. So if you don't apologise, and listen, there's a few things. It shows the kind of character you are, and actually, I don't think that you deserve a knighthood. And actually, the public should have some sort of say as to who they want to glorify. And I want to just kind of equate this to those slave traders and those statues. I'm not saying that Tony Blair is a slave trader, but I think that if you look at it, slave trading was illegal at the time. Everyone went along with it, but there must have been some objection at the time. We are now ripping down those statues, saying that these people shouldn't be honoured. So now we are going with this. Why are we honouring people who may have done something bad or good, but then they're trying to do philanthropic things in the way to try and mask what they're doing?
Saddam Hussein was a slave trader.
Yes, but I'm just saying it. Well,
he did trade in people.
Well, so
and Tony Blair believed getting rid of him was the right thing to do. I disagree with the Iraq war, but it was a sincere belief, and there was a case for it, I think.
No, there wasn't a case for it. There wasn't a case for it.
The knighthood of Tony Blair, I think, just makes the public feel, with total justification, this is an absolute chumocracy. It's gongs for the friends of government, and it completely undermines public trust in the entire system. The whole system needs reform anyway. The House of Laws needs reform. All of this honours this needs reform.
It all needs reform.
And this makes that just really prevalent. People have lost faith in the entire system.
We're talking about a chumocracy. So a former Prime Minister is given a knighthood. Meanwhile, if you're a serious donor to the Tory party, you're put in the House of Lords.
That's also
right?
wrong.
And that's chumocracy.
Yes, that's wrong.
Yeah, that's also wrong.
That is chumocracy.
Yeah, but it's wrong. It's wrong. I would agree with you.
But Tony Blair was made it not because he's a pal of Boris Johnson, God forbid, but because he's a former Prime Minister.
But
right?
it feels so nepotistic. The whole thing feels very nepotistic. You're giving to people, as you said, because the others have got one and and they're all. No, it should be based on merit. And if you do something that is bad, then it's a demerit, and they could be able to cancel each other out. You don't just automatically get one irrespective of what you do. And he did something that was unacceptable. The most of the country haven't forgiven him, and he's not apologised. He keeps giving advice as well. He pops up somewhere else with, well, what you should really be doing. When he started talking about Afghanistan, it was like, how dare you? This is coming as something that you started. You were involved in the beginnings of this.
He's a man utterly bereft of humility. He kind of just gives his advice even when it's not wanted. Particularly, let's go back to Brexit. He did everything in his power to try and derail that. It's the same with COVID passports. He gives his opinion when it's unwanted, and he gets rewarded for that. And that's where we're at. That's the state of the gong system in Britain.
He's making a fortune as well.
I mean, he won 3 successive elections. I think it's fair for him to give his opinion. I think a lot of people in the country still will listen to him when he speaks. And the fact that the opposition to him is so noisy and they sign these petitions, the Stop the War coalition, whatever, I think he won 3 elections, so he should be... He changed the country. He did lots of good things as well as the bad things we've heard about. So I think he should be honoured for that, like other former Prime Ministers.
Yeah, but again, there's that nepotistic thing you're talking about, like other former Prime Ministers.
I'm not saying I support the honour system. I think there's a problem with the honour system generally. I just mean if people like John Major are getting them, I don't see why Tony Blair shouldn't.
I think to say it's nepotism to give a former Prime Minister an honour is not what nepotism's about. I mean, it's just like if you're a civil servant who's been in charge of a department, you're normally given a knighthood. If you're an ambassador, you're given a knighthood. I mean, those things happen, right? That's the way. And yes, let's get rid of the honour system. I would be only too happy.
Well, I do think it's nepotistic, and by that, obviously, I mean it's like an ancestral thing where because you know so-and-so, or because he got one, then you get one, and the merit element of it, which it should be a meritocracy where you look at what they did, and if they're worthy of it, then they get it. It's not nothing. None of these things should be automatic. Now, Peter on Tony Blair says, I'm so shocked, as so many other people are, that Blair is getting a knighthood. Carol says, about time he got a knighthood, did a lot for the working people of this country, one mistake, so have all the other leaders who got knighthoods. Well, I hear your point, it's fair enough. But Kevin says, Blair, no! Maureen says, he should have the honour withdrawn after sending our country to war. Adrian says he's responsible for taking us into a phony war. And then one user says that he very much deserves, he won 3 elections for Labour, no prospect of anyone achieving that for Labour at any time soon. Or ever, by the way. I added that bit in myself by the looks of things. The media campaign is rubbish and flawed. 400,000 plus might have voted. What about the rest of the 67 million who are silent? There's still time. Listen, get in touch. Keep them coming with your thoughts. You've been sending me all those opinions. Still to come, though, are prison sentences for child murderers way too lenient? We'll be talking about that. Have a look at this, then.
Coming up, as Dan Wootton Tonight returns, is it cruel for school kids to be forced into masks in the classroom? We'll debate and get your verdict. Is Prince Andrew's silence on Virginia Jeffrey doing him more harm than good? Top lawyer Rad Seeger, who met with Epstein's victims and worked on securing justice for Harry Dunn, believes the Duke could learn some valuable lessons from that case. He'll be here in Uncancelled. Is Sturgeon's COVID authoritarianism out of control? We'll hear from eyewitnesses of a shocking police crackdown on a Scottish pub that's gone viral for all the wrong reasons. And as Justin Trudeau's claim that the unvaccinated are racist and misogynist, the most ridiculous COVID statement ever. GBNews star Neil Oliver weighs in. Plus, my superstar panel, Benjamin Butterworth, social commentator Esther Kraku, and Christine Hamilton. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Friday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamonn.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Good afternoon. Good evening, actually. This is Dewbs & Co. I'm Nana Akua. Now, an article today reported on the documentary about the death of a 12-week-old baby Teddy. Now, his mother's boyfriend, Kane Mitchell of St Neots in Cambridgeshire, was jailed for a minimum of 18 years at Cambridge Crown Court last February for his murder. The death was reminiscent of the injuries which killed 16-month-old Star Hobson, who was murdered by 28-year-old Savannah Brockhill, the girlfriend of her mother, Frankie Smith. She was jailed for 25 years. The stepmum of Arthur Labinjo Hughes, Emma Tustin, was given 29 years, and his father, Thomas Hughes, got 21 years for manslaughter. The Attorney General says that the jail sentences given to Arthur's killers were too lenient. Are they? Should child killers face the death penalty? That's the question I'm asking. So I think I'm going to have to start with you, because I think you'll probably come up with something good.
Well, thank you very much. I may surprise you here by getting suddenly liberal.
Oh, really?
On your backside here, because I don't think that any civilised society should use inhumanity to beget further inhumanity. Child killings are obviously the most sensitive, and I understand people have the same thoughts about terror-related incidents, about mass murders. I spent time in Category A prisons. I used to go in and do prison work with a lot of killers. Spoke to a lot of them. I spoke to prison psychologists at HMP Whitemore. Their preachment. A strange thing happens when you sort of spend time with people like that, and you realise that they often sort of come from an absolute life of trauma and chaos.
Well, do you think that they wouldn't want to inflict it on somebody else then?
No,
they have first-hand knowledge. So
yeah, but what I'm saying is, I think child killers are especially sensitive in terms of how we react to it, and I say that as a parent as well. But I think we get things just about right in Britain. I do agree with 4 life terms. I'm dead against early parole as an automatic right. But I really believe that history has shown us that we've made so many mistakes of erroneously killing people for crimes.
What do you mean? So getting it wrong?
Yeah, we've hung people that were proved later to be innocent.
Well, OK, so let's take that out of the equation, and we know that it's them, for sure, especially if we know they've killed them, they know they've killed them, everyone knows they killed them, they are guilty. If they are then definitely guilty, then surely.
I am philosophically and intrinsically opposed to the death penalty being reintroduced in the UK.
OK.
Yeah.
I'm completely with Martin. I think
I know. Make a note of that.
I have to say, I did not think that's what happened. No, I think it's. I think what happened. I'm sure I'm with him on this one too. Was absolutely dreadful, and for most of us, it's incomprehensible that it wasn't these children weren't just killed. I mean, they were sort of tortured beforehand. But I don't see what good it does. The death penalty. I think the death penalty, it is a terrible thing to do. I think to live in a country that doesn't have it, you feel very proud of not having it. And frankly, I mean, in America, when there is an execution of whatever sort, I mean, actually, the murder rate goes up in the next 2 days. It does not...
No, look, you may say that, but you cannot immediately relate that to that at all. I can tell you one thing. No, I don't think you can.
Well, it's not
one of the
deterrent,
reasons
Anna.
why I would say a lot of people say that, oh, the figures in America hasn't made any difference. Listen, they now have submachine guns that you can get. You can get a gun. You've got this. There's too many ways of killing mass murders.
But I don't think you heard what I said. Is that when there is an execution in the next couple of days around that, in the state, it goes up.
No, I heard you.
But it doesn't. So the problem is, it's not a deterrent. It doesn't work.
Well, then I don't think you heard what I said, which is I don't think you can conflate the two. I don't
All
think
right,
that there can be many external factors that could affect the numbers. I don't know. I don't know whether it does or doesn't work. And I don't.
Knowing that, I mean, these people thinking, well, if I kill this child, I might, I might be killed. I don't think it was going to affect them. I mean,
I think it might. I think it might. And even if it saves just one child, I'd be happy with that.
Well,
so in my eyes, I think that if people believe that there's some comeback to them. I mean, look,
so
the killers of Arthur Labinjo Hughes showed no remorse at all. They showed no remorse. And the reason why they looked into the sentencing is because 29 and 21 years, there's automatic parole and things like that. I don't even know why there was an option for people like that. There's the Arthur's Law that is potentially coming in, but it wouldn't affect them. Right? It should. If it was me, they would have been executed. James?
No, I mean, I don't think we should bring back the death penalty because I think that when you have the death penalty, innocent people do invariably get executed by the state. I don't think we should give the state that power.
Let's take away the prospect of innocent people being executed.
How do you do that? Because these people, it's beyond reasonable doubt. It's not 100% cast iron. It's beyond reasonable doubt. That's how a jury reaches a verdict. And juries have reached a verdict like that before, and people have been executed and later found to be innocent.
Beyond reasonable doubt.
I don't think we should give the state that power to kill people.
But it's not giving the state power.
Even if they're guilty, I don't think we should give the state that power. But when you do, innocent people invariably get executed.
Okay.
There's very few crimes. When someone's found guilty, very few cases can you prove 100%. It's beyond reasonable doubt.
Okay,
and sometimes evidence later emerges and the person's been
so you keep
killed by the
talking
state.
to not allow me to ask you this question because you don't want to answer it. But you keep talking about beyond reasonable doubt.
I will answer it, yeah.
That's great. So beyond reasonable doubt, and it is, and we know they've killed them, and there's no, we know they've killed them.
That's hardly any cases. That isn't this case, though. You don't know.
Let me finish. It would be for specific cases, and this case in particular, so the opportunity would be there for specific cases like this, I would say for paedophilia as well, because there's usually evidence. Paedophiles will usually take pictures, have videos or whatever. So when you know, beyond reasonable doubt, and you know that they are guilty, and they admit they're guilty, they know they're guilty, we can see they're guilty, then is it still not acceptable?
I don't think it is. I don't think the state should have the power to execute people. I don't think the response to someone being murdered and saying killing is wrong is for the state to kill that person.
No, but specifically for child killers.
I think morally
specifically for child killers. So morally that's wrong, but killing a child
is moral. I don't think as a society we endorse killing children. I think as a society we should say we should have more lenient, more stronger prison sentences.
What about
I think they are too lenient.
Do you think that it would
for
be
violence
a
in general?
Do you think a death penalty, potential death?
No, I mean the countries where the death penalty is used, America's one of the most violent. America's one of the most violent societies in the world, and it executes lots of people. It doesn't work as a deterrent.
You don't know that. No, hang on, no.
The evidence says it doesn't.
There's no real evidence to say that really, because it's not factored in.
The most violent societies in the world also execute people.
Yes, but some of the most violent societies in the world have things like guns, machine guns, which people can carry. So I don't know whether you can genuinely put a comparison there and say that where they had the death penalty.
There's no evidence it works, though, and I don't think we should bring it back on the basis that there isn't evidence it works.
Yeah, so you don't think that if somebody thought that they'd be executed if they did something extremely bad, that they wouldn't act as a deterrent?
There's no evidence that it does.
But you needed evidence. You don't think it?
I think sometimes also a long prison sentence is worse. I think the easy way out. You see some of these people trying to commit suicide. I think being in prison, their life is more miserable.
Well, a lot of the time the prisoners end up killing them in there anyway, so it becomes a sort of death penalty. I just don't think the pressure should be on the prisoners to do it.
I think if we fundamentally believe in forgiveness and decency and humanity, I don't think the UK, and by the way, all of these people who perpetrate these crimes have none of those characteristics.
Absolutely not.
So for us to sort of say, well, you deserve to die because you killed, I think is a step backwards to the sort of the sort of nations in the world which I don't think we should be having any sort of currency with. When you look at the countries that execute the most, I just don't think the United Kingdom should be joining the ranks of those. And this may surprise you, because I might come across as the right winger, even though I've voted Labour for decades. But I just think, for me, for a lot of people, that's fine. That's a part of that right wing sort of plethora of beliefs. But for me, I just think it's a step too far.
Oh, right, that's interesting, because it's easier to make that choice if you're detached from it. But if it was somebody that you knew, or one of your relatives, I think you'd probably do it yourself. Right. What are your thoughts? I wonder what people have been saying. Let's have a look and seeing what everything has been saying. Let's see. So Patricia says, oh, hang on, that's about Linda. Says to the death penalty, yes, yes, yes. Linda, I'm with you. Danny says, we have advanced forensic skills in the UK, so I'm all for bringing back the death penalty in the UK for all murderers with a death row of 10 years to prove your innocence. Adrian says, no to the death penalty. Sentences should be life. Let them suffer in prison. It won't be an easy life by far. You think not? Some of those prisons, they've got Wi-Fi, they've got quite a lot of good things in there, those prisons. At least their victims are dead. Leona says, bring back the death penalty without a question to child killers and murderers. The death penalty is a deterrent. Let's see what they're saying on Tony Blair. Philip says, Tony Blair, he generously donated many of his prime years to our country and to ordinary folk. Yes, Philip, he also generously, in a sense, donated all our gold, didn't he? With left-of-centre post, Thatcher policies following the Thatcher resolution, and was an unbelievable breath of fresh air at the amazing time. Amazing Englishman. You've not mentioned Iraq. OK, fair enough. I'm joking. But I respect your view. I see you. Kerry says he definitely shouldn't be knighted because of the needless war and almost bankrupting the country. Patricia says, what a disgrace this knighthood is. Prime Minister or not, he changed the country for the worst. Jackie on this says, why should Prime Ministers get honours? They should be for ordinary people, for doing ordinary things. Prime Ministers, extraordinary things, sorry. Prime Ministers that mislead the British public shouldn't be rewarded. Gary makes this point. I think Her Majesty will change her mind once she absorbed public opinion to the Blair situation. I wonder what the petition's on now. We'll see if we can get an update. But I think that she may still give him some of a lesser reward or honour. Ian on Blair, he says, Blair was and is a globalist. Why do people get so desperate for someone else to sort out their problems? Because they can't. They only make mess, which we pay to clean up. We are responsible for ourselves. So a lot of you have been getting in touch, and thank you so much for all those thoughts and sending your opinions. But now, let's talk comedy. Let's talk some comedy classes. I do like that. I do like to have a laugh. Comedy classes should be prescribed on the NHS to help trauma patients see the funny side of their experiences. The Comedy On Referral scheme will allow patients to attend a free 6-week course where they'll write jokes based on their traumas and perform them on stage. Professional comics will help deliver the sessions, which will be launched in Bristol later this month. So is this a good idea? Good idea, bad idea? James, what do you think?
When I first read this earlier, I thought, oh no, what is this? Another kind of gimmicky thing. But I mean, it is a pilot scheme, and they're trying out to see if it works. And I mean, there's lots of other things that are piloted like this. So I mean, I don't see why not. If I think some people, when people have trauma, they can often just stay in the house and feel depressed. I think getting people out to somewhere like this will help immeasurably in itself. So I mean, whether the actual comedy and telling jokes about their experiences will work, I don't know. But they seem to have had positive feedback so far from it.
I think they're going to...
So, I mean, if it works, then I'm fine with that.
It's great, isn't it? But what about the woke brigade? They might suddenly start saying you can't make a joke out of your own injury because you're going to offend somebody, and
yeah, precisely.
we're going to get ourselves in trouble.
But when I first saw this, my skin crawls. Like, oh my God, it's going to be NHS approved comedy like Nish Kumar, like Have I Got News for You, which I think would finish me off. that would make me lose the will to live altogether. But in actual fact, when you look into this, what it actually is a form of group therapy, where people gather around and they make light over their own traumatic experience. And I think that's a wonderful idea. Before I got into politics, I did a lot of work in mental health, particularly around men. Men find it very difficult to sort of communicate in traditional ways, and they use banter and they use kind of jokes as a way of testing if they trust somebody. And I think in that circumstance, it's a really positive idea, because loneliness kills, We've seen that during the pandemic. You know, being isolated, being alone is a terrible, terrible blight, one of the unintended consequences of all these lockdowns. And I think bringing people together to have a laugh is a tremendous idea and the sort of thing we should have a lot more of in the new year.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that, I mean, a lot of journalists, I mean, there's black humour, isn't there? I'm sure that in newsrooms, when there are terrible stories, you tell terrible jokes. I'm sure it's the same in hospitals, in the fire service, etc. But I also remember, I mean, that I used to tell jokes about the birth of my first child, and I could have everybody laughing about all the sort of appalling things and me screaming in pain. Until, of course, the day before the second one, when I suddenly realised that it wasn't funny, and I really didn't want to go through it again. By which time it was too late. But I think doing that thing, it could work, and if it works, I think it's great. I think it's the best way of getting over a trauma.
Well, let's hope it doesn't get hijacked by the woke brigade, though, because. You know, then there's that, oh, you can't say that because you're offending that, or people being offended on others' behalf, and that would spoil it for me. But I always find a joke in sort of the dark times. Like that, for me, that's how I get through things. I'm always laughing at pretty much everything. Yeah,
it'd be a grim irony, wouldn't it, if people went along to kind of share their trauma and they were getting told off for being politically incorrect and sort of jokes they were telling, which could well happen. In this day and age,
not going to happen.
You don't think it happen?
I think this is about being funny at yourself. I mean, the people on the last leg who I mean, telling jokes against themselves and their disability. I mean, you know, that's how they came to terms with it, and they made it very funny. And
but they get a free pass because of who they are. What I'm talking about is you know, nowadays tweets and jokes can be classified as hate crimes. No longer, actually, thanks to Harry Miller, the chairman of the Reclaim Party, who took a historic ruling against non-crime, hate crime incidents being now on your record. More of that in the new year as well. More kicking back against kind of, you know, control of the jokes we're allowed to tell. Because, you know, if you start censoring humour, that's what they do in places like North Korea.
Well, that's true. We quite like. I love humour. I think it's the best way to get around anything, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I believe anyway that with trauma, I mean, one of the things is to kind of confront it rather than just bury it. And what better way to do that than to make jokes, make light of it, and then it's not such a heavy issue, whatever it was that was troubling you.
Well, I'm always laughing at myself. I find myself incredibly funny, especially when something goes wrong, which it often does. It's always going on like that in my life. Well, listen, it's been such a pleasure if you've just joined me. I'll be back, actually, between 4 and 6 on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. You've been sending us a few messages about comedy. Adrian, like in Rocky, says, a good laugh is good medicine. I know exactly what you're talking about there. And Richard says, Nana, your new hairstyle is very nice. Thank you. Oh, God, it's come off. I'm joking. I'll just get another one. Do you know, I'd be so quick under there, you wouldn't even see me. I'd be going so fast. You'd be like, oh, you'd actually have to slow it down to try and see what I really look like, and then you wouldn't catch me. You wouldn't catch me. Well, listen, thank you so much for all of your thoughts as well. Thank you so much to my fabulous panel, Martin Daubney, also Scarlett Maguire, and James Bloodworth. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much to you. And thank you so much to you for watching. Michelle Dewbs will be back tomorrow at 6. Nigel Farage is coming up at the top of the hour. But first, let's get another update with your weather. Enjoy.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Ahead to this evening's weather, the UK looking largely dry in the south, some rain and hill snow further north. Let's have a look at the details. Zooming into the southwest, whilst it will be largely dry, it will be rather cloudy this evening, remaining mild though, with temperatures still in double figures. The southeast of England, as well as East Anglia, will also be dry this evening, but again with a fair amount of cloud across the capital. There'll be some outbreaks of rain across Wales as we end Monday. But northern areas, they may also see some clearer spells developing as well. Well, the Midlands this evening should be largely dry, we expect, although southern areas will remain cloudy and mild. The North Midlands may see some clearer spells, but here it will be that little bit colder. Moving up to northern England, we see that band of rain and hill snow moving southwards across the area, behind the rain turning much colder than it has been of late. That might be a comfort to some of you. The cold air will already be across Scotland, with some blustery wintry showers across the north, giving the risk of some icy patches here. Further south, dry but quickly turning frosty, and the clearer but colder weather will also be spreading across Northern Ireland this evening, with any rain quickly clearing to the south of the country. A few showers may follow across the north coast. This evening we'll see the band of rain and hill continue to move southwards with frequent snow showers and strong winds across the far north. That's how the weather's shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamonn.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join